Welcome back, everybody. This is Bruce from the Epic Experiment. It's time for another deck tech. This was a fun one for me. This is my Ultra Magnus deck. So Ultra Magnus is a pretty sweet Naya commander that cares about artifacts. So let's have a read here. So Ultra Magnus, 4 red, green, white for a 7/7 legendary creature artifact robot. And it also has more than meets the eye for 2, a red, a green, and a white, which means you can cast it for its transform side. It has Ward 2. Whenever Ultra Magnus attacks, you may put an artifact creature card from your hand onto the battlefield tapped and attacking. If you do, convert Ultra Magnus at end of combat. And on the other side, if you play him on the back side, he is Ultra Magnus Armored Carrier. He's a 4/7 with living metal, which means he is a creature on your turn, but he isn't when on your opponent's turns. He has haste. And whenever Ultra Magnus attacks, attacking creatures you control gain indestructible until end of turn. If those creatures have total power 8 or greater, convert Ultra Magnus. So this deck cares about cheating in big things, particularly artifacts. So that's what the premise of this deck is. Now, the problem with Ultra Magnus is that, unlike Optimus Prime, which I've previously done, Optimus Prime sticks around far more readily than Ultra Magnus. Ultra Magnus is a little fragile. The Ward 2 helps, but he gets caught up in board wipes pretty regularly, and he's pretty expensive. So, how do we make sure we can keep Ultra Magnus on the battlefield in order to do our thing? Well, let's talk about that. Ultra Magnus is expensive. He is 7 mana, so we have lots of ways to keep him in play. Let's talk about our ramp. We've got an Arcane Signet. This should be pretty much a staple everywhere we go. Good card. Cradle Clear Cutter. So this is a 6 mana artifact. It's a 3/6 golem. It says tap to add an amount of green equal to Cradle Clear Cutter's power. It also has Prototype for 2 and a green. This makes it a 1/3. So if you can cast this for full bag, it's a tap for 3 green mana. If you can only do it on 3, then you have a 1/3 taps for 1 mana. Okay, not the worst. There's lots of other ways to pump artifacts in this deck. So this could tap for 4 or 5 or 6 mana without too much difficulty, which really goes a long way in helping you cast Ultra Magnus and keep him in play. We have Fellwar Stone. Okay. We have a Sol Ring. Can't go wrong there. We have an Avis's Pilgrim. Kind of weird having an elf in an artifact deck, but we need the ramp, so we're playing Avis's Pilgrim. Fabro Elder. Well, because you're in 3 colors, this taps for 3 mana, making it pretty useful to help keep your Ultra Magnus in play. Joyrus Familiar. Now, because your historic spells, which are artifacts, are so expensive in this deck, that helps chop down the cost by 1. Semblance Anvil will help you cut the cost down by 2 more if you imprint an artifact on it. Okay. We have a Geode Golem. Geode Golem says, it's a 5 mana, 5/3 with trample. It's a golem, and it says whenever Geode Golem deals combat damage to a player, you may cast your commander from the command zone without paying his mana cost. That sounds great to me because that's what we need to do. We need to get it into play. Foundry Inspector makes artifacts cost 1 less. Okay. Goreclaw. Goreclaw says creature spells you cast with power 4 or greater cost 2 less to cast. When Goreclaw, Terror of Kalsisma, attacks, each creature you control with power 4 or greater gets +1/+1 against trample until end of turn. This plays really nicely with Ultra Magnus. We have Bramble Familiar. So this is on one side, you can cast it for a 2/2 creature that's tapped to add a green, and 1 and a green, tap it, discard or card, return Bramble Familiar to your hand, to its owner's hand. For 5 green, mill 7 cards, put a creature, enchantment, or land card from among the exile cards onto the battlefield. So, among the milled cards. It's hard to read. So, useful card. I usually use it as a mana dork, but sometimes in the late stages of the game, you can go and get it back and do something useful with it. Ramp and growth, right? More ramp, and we have an Elvish Mystic. All right, that's our ramp package. It's pretty big for a deck that is looking to get a lot of stuff into play, but you got to have expensive commanders, so you got to get there. All right. Now, once we have your commander in play, you need to protect it. All right. So your protection is pretty key because if you don't protect Ultra Magnus, the deck comes unglued. All right. So your Temple under attack. So this is a 2 and a white for an instant. Has two modes. Pay for protection. Creatures you control get indestructible at the end of turn, or strike a deal. You and target opponent each draw 2 cards. Sometimes you need to draw cards. I don't really like that. That's like Secret Rendezvous though, so sometimes it's not bad. But usually you want to play it to give your things indestructible. This is Heroic Intervention. So that's the green one that gives your creatures, you hexproof and your creatures indestructible. Swiftfoot Boots gives equipped creature gains hexproof and haste. All right, we have Rootborne Defenses that gives all your things indestructible and can even populate. Shalai gives all your other permanents. Sorry, you, planeswalkers you control, and other creatures you control have hexproof. And then 4 green, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. All right, we've got Aether Shield Artificer, 3 and a white for a 3/3 creature dwarf artificer. At the beginning of combat on your turn, target artifact creature you control gets +2/+2 and gets indestructible until end of turn. This is perfect for Ultra Magnus, turns him into a 9/9 and means he's indestructible, so they're probably not dying. Leonin Abunis, so 3 and a white for a 2/5. It's a cat cleric. Artifacts you control can't be the target of spells or abilities your opponents control. So giving all your artifacts essentially hexproof or shroud or whatever. And then Hajar, Loyal Bodyguard, red-green for a 3/3, legendary creature, human soldier. Sacrifice Hajar. Legendary creatures you control get +1/+0 and get indestructible at end of turn. This allows you to protect your board and make sure that you don't end up losing Ultra Magnus or everything else wrapped up in a wipe, which is kind of key. Also, since Ultra Magnus has this ability to grant your things indestructible, you're leaning into this ability to have indestructible creatures by playing a pretty healthy package to wipe your boards. So if you can get Ultra Magnus' ability to trigger, you're going to get to be able to cast Day of Judgment on your second main phase to kill things dead. Or depopulate. 2 4-mana board wipes that are super useful. Settle the Wreckage is another one that's 4 mana, although it exiles things and they can go find basic lands. Usually use this on your opponent when they alpha strike you, but sometimes if you need to, and you can exile your own stuff to dig up some lands, whatever you need. March of Otherworldly Light is kind of like Source to Plowshares for someone who doesn't have Source to Plowshares. Crib Swap, also exile target creature. Its controller creates a 1/1 colorless shapeshifter creature token with Changeling. I don't know why this card isn't spoken about more often. People are playing Generous Gift. Most of the time, Generous Gift targets a creature. This is going to do the same thing. It exiles it, and then it leaves you with a 1/1. Sylvan Reclamation is going to exile up to 2 target artifacts and or enchantments and has basic land cycling. So if you need to cycle it away, you can, but most of the time you're going to use it to go and exile some problematic permanents. Aven Mind Sensor. I like this card to help stifle people's landfall, their fetch lands and stuff like that, or if they're searching. That's pretty tricky. I don't love opposition agent effects, but sometimes you got to play them to slow them down and make sure that you can stay ahead of them. So it is a choice. All right, we have an Alibu. Alibu is pretty interesting. So this is a 3 red-white for a 4/5 legendary creature, Golem. This was from the Strixhaven pre-constructed deck, and other artifact creatures you control have haste. Whenever one or more artifact creatures you control attack, Alibu Ancient Witness deals X damage to any target, and you scry where X is the number of tapped artifacts you control. Pretty useful. I like it a lot. Good piece of removal there. Next, we have an Abrade, just useful little piece of removal. And we've got the Brothers War. This one's kind of interesting. 3 and a red for a Saga. Create 2 tapped Power Stone tokens. Okay, useful. And then 2, choose 2 target players. Until your next turn, each creature they control attacks the other chosen player each combat if able. And then 3, the Brothers War deals X damage to any target and X damage to any other target, where X is the number of artifacts you control. Since your deck is predicated on a lot of artifacts, that third chapter is going to be pretty potent. All right, now let's talk about what happens if Ultra Magnus gets removed or you end up getting things swept away. So we've got a pretty healthy recursion package. So first off, we have Pia's Revolution. So this is 2 and a red for an enchantment. Whenever a non-token artifact is put into your graveyard from the battlefield, return that card to your hand unless target opponent has Pia's Revolution, deal 3 damage to him or her instead. So that's going to be a pretty useful way for us to make sure we get our artifacts back from the graveyard. Particularly if you can target down the one player and then force them to get into the position where they have to give you the card. Super useful card. So Ratchet. Field Medic is another Autobot. So legendary artifact creature robot 2/4 with meets the eye for 1 and a white with lifelink. Whenever you gain life, you may convert Ratchet. When you do, return target artifact card with mana value less than or equal to the amount of life you gained this turn from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. Okay, handy. And on the back, you're going to go get as Ratchet Rescue Racer. Legendary artifact with living metal with lifelink. Whenever one or more non-token artifacts you control are put into a graveyard from the battlefield, convert Ratchet. This ability triggers only once each turn. So Ratchet can get you some things back, particularly if you can pump its power, and you're going to be able to get a larger artifact out of your graveyard. We have Brilliant Restoration. This one I like a great deal. So 3 white for a sorcery. Return all artifacts and enchantment cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. So if let's say the game's dragged on and you've gone and lost a bunch of your cool pieces, you get them all back all in one fell swoop. Maybe you just need one back though, and you have a refurbish. So return target artifact card from your graveyard to the battlefield. We have a Scarecrow. So this is a Scarecrow. 3 for an artifact creature. It's a 1/2. 1, sacrifice Scarecrow and draw a card. 4, tap, return target artifact creature from your graveyard to play. Yes, please. You can turn things right back into play. Iron Soul Enforcer. Whenever Iron Soul Enforcer or a commander you control attacks alone, return target artifact card from your graveyard to the battlefield. That's super good with Ultra Magnus. You get Ultra Magnus attacking, this can buy you back all sorts of things. And then Invoke Justice. This is 1 white. So 1 and 4 whites. Sorcery. Return target permanent card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Then distribute 4+1/+1 counters among any number of creatures and or vehicles target player controls. Super good to get a single target back out of your graveyard. All right, let's talk about what we've got for card advantage, because this deck is going to need to draw its pieces so you can actually make good use of it. So we have Imposing Grandeur. So 4 and a red. Sorcery. Each player may discard their hand and draw cards equal to the greatest mana value of a commander they own on the battlefield or in the command zone. So since my commander is 7 mana, it's probably among the most expensive commanders that are on the board. So I'm usually going to be able to use this to pay 5, draw 7. Super handy card. I really like it. I haven't used it too frequently, but I'm pretty down for it. 2 and a red for Into the Fire. This is a sorcery that has 2 modes. Choose 1. Into the Fire deals 2 damage to each creature, planeswalker, and battle. So it's a pyroclasm effect, or you put any number of cards from your hand on the bottom of your library, then draw that many cards +1. Just that new effect that red is getting, where it's cycling through your hand. So if you have a bunch of sluff in your hand, you can get rid of it all and get something good. Daretti, Scrap Savant, 3 and a red for a 3 loyalty planeswalker Daretti. +2, discard up to 2 cards, then draw that many cards. -2, sacrifice an artifact. If you do, return target artifact card from your graveyard to the battlefield. -10, you get an emblem. Whenever an artifact is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, return that card to the battlefield at the beginning of the next end step. All right, so this card is super good. It's going to draw me cards. Every once in a while, you get to cash in a derpy artifact for something good. Who knows? Tempered Solitude, 1 and a red for an enchantment. Whenever a creature you control attacks alone, namely Ultra Magnus, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card this turn. Okay. Platoon Dispenser. So 5 mana, 4/5 artifact creature construct. At the beginning of your end step, if you control 2 or more creatures, draw a card. And has 3 and a white, create a 1/1 color soldier artifact creature token. And has unearth for 2 and white. You're really playing this for the card advantage on us, although the fact that it can make you bodies is handy at times. Up the Beanstalk. Most of your creatures that are down here are going to trigger this because it's 1 and a green for an enchantment. When Up the Beanstalk enters the battlefield, and whenever you cast a spell with mana value 5 or greater, draw a card. Now, it doesn't work particularly well with Ultra Magnuses just putting them into play, but if you have to cast some of these big things, then it works out pretty well. Sandstone Oracle, 7 mana for a 4/4 Sphinx with flying. Sandstone Oracle enters the battlefield, choose an opponent. If that player has more cards in hand than you, draw cards equal to the difference. So probably going to net me 2 or 3 cards because I'm going to run things out pretty easily. Outpost Siege, All right, so you're going to pick cons. You're going to exile the top card of your library every turn. Ruin Grinder, 5 and a red for a 7/4 with Menace. When Ruin Grinder dies, each player may discard their hand and draw 7 cards, and all of it has Mountain Cycling for 2. We've got Combustible Gearhulk, so 4 red for a 6/6 with artifact creature with first strike. When Combustible Gearhulk enters the battlefield, target opponent may have you draw 3 cards. If the player doesn't, you mill 3, then Combustible Gearhulk deals damage to that player equal to the amount of mana value of those cards. That's super useful because if you have a bunch of these big creatures down here that are just big and fat, you're going to deal a lot of damage. Your opponents don't want to mess around with that. They're just going to let you have the 3 cards most of the time. Seravok's Tome. This one's interesting. So this is a 4 mana artifact. When Seravok's Tome enters the battlefield, you take the initiative. Tap, add colorless. If you have the initiative, add 2 colors instead. 3, tap, exile cards on the top of your library until you exile a non-land card. You may cast that card without paying its mana cost. Activate only if you completed a dungeon. So you can get the initiative and make use of the initiative, and then it allows you to put things into play. And then we have Sylvan Library, which is going to be a great effect. That's my proxy for it. I have it sitting in a binder over there, but that is my proxy for my Sylvan Library. Okay, so we've talked about everything else other than this monster manual, and then we'll talk to some of the creatures. So Monster Manual is 3 and a green for an artifact. It is an adventure. So 1 and a green on one side. You may put a creature card from your hand onto the battlefield. So it's like Elvish Piper in that respect. But it has another side. 2 and a green for a sorcery. It's an adventure. Mill 5 cards and return a creature card milled this way to your hand. So a little bit of mill for some card selection, and then you can put things into play. All right. We've got a bunch of powerful creatures in here, so let's talk about what we've got. So we've got Prowl. Stoic Strategist, 3 and a white for a 3/3 legendary artifact creature robot. It also has more than meets the eye for 2 and a white. Whenever Prowl attacks, exile up to one other target tapped creature or vehicle. For as long as that card remains exiled, its owner may play it. Whenever a player plays a card exiled with Prowl, you may draw a card and convert Prowl. That side is useful. And let's see the other side. We have Prowl. We have Prowl Pursuit Vehicle. As a living metal, as a 2/3. Whenever another creature or vehicle enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on Prowl. If this is the second time his ability has resolved this turn, convert Prowl. So you can make Prowl bigger, but you can also exile things. Sometimes you're going to exile your own thing and recast it to end up getting card advantage off of it, draw a card. Sometimes you're going to exile your opponent's things and take a problematic piece off the table. Well, we have Bosch. Bosch Iron Golem is a 8 mana 6/7 with legendary artifact creature with trample. 3 and a red, sacrifice an artifact. Bosch Iron Golem deals damage equal to the sacrificed artifact's converted mana cost to any target. So you can fling one of your artifacts at your opponent's face. You can throw like something like a Rootwire Amalgam. 5 mana for a 5/5 artifact creature golem. Has prototype for 1 and a green for a 2/3. But 3 and green sacrifice Rootwire Amalgam. Create an XX green colors artifact creature token where X is 3 times Rootwire Amalgam's power. It gains haste until end of turn. Activate only as a sorcery. All right, so you can, sacrifice it and then get a really big token for it. Hopefully it's a 15/15. Sounds good to me. Sarenth Greatworm. This one's interesting. So 4 green-red for a 7/6 with trample. It's a worm. Whenever a land enters the battlefield, you can create a tapped Power Stone token. Power Stones are good, but you can use them to cast artifacts, which is going to help you ramp. So I guess it also gives you just fodder for all sorts of things. So Philology Dragon Engine. So 8 mana for a 5/5 flying dragon creature artifact. Has prototype for 2 and a red for 1/3. Also has 2 Philology Dragon Engine, gets +1/+0 until end of turn. So it's like smoke breathing, so to speak. Not fire breathing, because that would be a single red, but similar to it. We have Skitterbeam Battalion, 9 mana for a 4/4 with trample and haste. When Skitterbeam Battalion enters the battlefield, if you cast it, create 2 tokens that are copies of it. And use prototype for 3 red for a 2/2. So if you prototype it, you're going to get 3 2/2s. If you spend full bag, you're going to get 3 4/4s. Even better if Ultra Magnus can let you cheat it into play and get a bunch of 4/4s. Artificer's Dragon. It is a 6 mana 4/4 with flying. Red, artifact creatures you control get +1/+0 until end of turn. All your artifact creatures can get pumped. If this thing can be left unchecked, you're going to blow your opponent out spectacularly. Phyrexian Triniform, 9 mana, 9/9, artifact creature Phyrexian Golem. When Phyrexian Triniform dies, create 3/3/3 colors Phyrexian Golems, artifact creature tokens, and is Encore for 12. So Encore means that you exile this and from your graveyard. For each opponent, create a token copy that's a copy that opponent or that attacks this opponent this turn. If able, they gain haste. Sacrifice them at the beginning of the next end step. Activate only as a sorcery. So once it dies and you made the 3/3s, you can exile it for paying 12, and now you have a bunch of 9/9s running around again. And when they die, you get more 3/3s. It's pretty funny. We have Mirror Battlesphere. So Mirror Battlesphere is a classic. It's a 4/7/4/7. Makes 4 colors mirror tokens. Whenever Mirror Battlesphere attacks, you may tap X, untap Mirror. If you do, Mirror Battlefield gets +X/+0 until end of turn and deals X damage to the player or planeswalker it's attacking. So it can do a lot of damage in a real big hurry. Steel Seraph. So this is a 5/4 for 6. And it also has a prototype for 1 white for a 3/3. At the beginning of combat on your turn, target creature you control gains your choice of flying, vigilance, or lifelink until end of turn. Sometimes getting a bunch of life is handy. If you have like maybe Ratchet, maybe you want to get something vigilance, maybe you want to give something flying, who knows. Rust Goliath. So Rust Goliath is a 10 mana 10/10 with reach and trample as prototype for 3 green for a 3/5. This is just a big dumb thing that if you can, make use of it, maybe Bosch throws it, maybe you cheat it into play with Ultra Magnus, and the 10/10 just stomps somebody. And then we also have Traxos Scourge of Krug for 4 mana 7/7 with legendary artifact creature with trample. When Traxos Scourge of Krug enters the battlefield tapped and doesn't untap until during your untap step, you may cast a historic spell and to untap Traxos. So super big boy, and if you can cast something on your first main phase to untap it and then attack and then cast another one to untap it, you're going to be laughing. Then how do we pump our artifacts? I don't really like to play enchantments that target one particular thing. So we've got Steel Overseer. So you tap Steel Overseer, your artifact creatures pick up a counter. It's going to make them big. We have a Tempered Steel for 1 white for artifact creatures you control get +2/+2. And then we have Loxodon Warhammer, where your artifact equipped creature gets +3/+0 and has trample and vigilance. All right, so that's the deck. It is pretty fun. There is not a single game changer on the list. All right, this could be as I would describe as a bracket 2 list. It's a little on the slow side because you're talking about big, slow artifacts, but it is a very, very fun deck. I love the idea of getting Ultra Magnus to pop off and put giant artifacts into play. It's a very different build. There's not a lot of people that are playing this sort of deck. In terms of price-wise, this is not too bad. The main cards in the deck are not overly pricey. Many of them have been reprinted recently. The mana base I'm running with has got some pricier pieces, some fetch lands and some shock lands and stuff like that. But there's lots of good lands out there that you don't need to play those sorts of effects to make this deck come to life. So it's up to you to scale it up and down a little bit as you see fit. All right? That is the deck tech. The list is down below in the notes. You can check it out for yourself, along with all of the other decks that have ever appeared on our show. You can do that. You can also check out our podcast each and every week. The link down below takes you to our back records. You can find all of our episodes. That'd be fantastic. As always, if you'd like and subscribe to us here on the channel, the drive for 50 is still alive. We're trying to get to 50 followers. We may not get there by the end of April, but we're still trying to get to there maybe by the end of May. Would love to add some extra viewers out there. So if you've been watching this and you've enjoyed it, please like and subscribe. It would mean the world to us. If you want to join us on social media, you can find us on all your favorite social media platforms. We are there somewhere, somehow. So come and join us, please. All right. That's Bruce for the Epic Experiment back. We have Ultra Magnus. Why not go out there, build yourself a big fat artifact deck, and make your opponents pay. Thanks, folks. Be good. Talk to you soon.